Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Shalom. Welcome to the Big Daddy Liberty Show, a special episode of the Big Daddy Liberty Show. This is the Mazakhele pilot. Mazakhele, of course, being a Zulu word for build it yourself or do it yourself. And you're probably wondering, what's this Mazakhele pilot? Well, I'm testing a new series that I want to roll out, if you are willing to support me in enacting it, called the Mazakhele Series. The Mazakhele Series will see me traveling around this country, bringing you stories of South Africans who are literally doing that, doing it for themselves, building it for themselves. It is a critically important conversation to have, especially with the local government elections being around the corner, scheduled for October as things stand. There's an honest and frank conversation that we need to have as South Africans around how do we take charge of our own communities? How do we take charge of our own neighborhoods? And there are South Africans right now who, because of state failure, because of the collapse of their municipalities, because of the ineptitude, corruption, and incompetence of their local politicians, have decided to take the initiative into their own hands. Black, white, Indian, colored, it's not a racial thing. They've done this as South Africans, as communities. Now, I'm here in Grahamstown, aka Makana, to showcase, or as the beginning place, the birthplace of this very campaign. So, why are we here? I'm going to show you two things. Number one, the residents of this town have done the basic groundwork to take charge of their neighborhoods. And I'll show you why that's the case. I'll show you why that's the case based on what are the responsibilities of a municipality: sewerage, trash collection, water, electricity. All of these things have effectively collapsed in this municipality to the point where even the residents of this town took this municipality to court and had it dissolved completely. So there's technically no municipality or administration at the moment. And it was important for me to begin the story here because these residents have literally acted against the corruption. They've acted against the ineptitude, but things are a bit stalled. But even as things are stalled politically, the residents themselves have chosen to do things for themselves. So I'm going to bring you those stories. There's some various characters who I've spoken to, and hopefully that'll inspire you who may be in a part of the world where you're in a similar boat, perhaps. Hopefully inspire you to Mazakele, to do things for yourself. So buckle up, strap in. This is the Big Daddy Liberty Show, the Mazakhele iteration of it. This is the pilot, of course, and I call it a pilot on purpose because if this is successful and if you guys want this as viewers of the show, then it'll be up to you to support me in financing, if you will, a proper series where we go across the country to all small dorpies who have similar problems and to showcase those South Africans who are doing it for themselves, building it for themselves. So with that being said, welcome to it. This is the BDL Show. As usual, if you want to support the show, the link and the information is in the description of this video. Welcome to it. I'm going to show you two things on this episode very briefly. Number one, the absolute shocking state of this town, the decay, the falling apart of everything. So brace yourselves. And of course, I'll show you those people and bring you those stories of those residents who are doing it themselves. Mazakele. Welcome to it. This is the Big Daddy Liberty Show. We're in Grahamstown. Let's get this show going. Yeah, but yes, Big Daddy Liberty here. I'm in front of the City Hall out here in Grahamstown / Makana, and I'm in conversation with the chairperson of the local residents association, the Makana Residents Association. Who am I talking to? Sally Price. I'm butchering the name.
Price Smith.
There we go. Double barrel surname for you for a double barrel interview. Sally, we've been going around the, I need to city, but town as the BDL Show. Again, this particular show is about showcasing residents who are beginning to say, look, yes, there is a problem. It is a grave, massive problem, but we can do something about it. We're doing something about it. Talk to me about your residents association. Firstly, the plight you guys have gone through and what you're doing about it.
We're trying very hard to establish the root cause of some of these problems, identify responsibilities, try and suggest solutions, find cause and effect, find responsibility, raise issues of responsibility, raise problems that we think can easily be solved, identify hotspots, find budget to do things that we think should be there and isn't being used correctly, talk with our residents about their problems, try and identify problems and get them reported to the municipality. Multi-pronged approach, really, to massive problems.
You know, you say this and immediately it's in my mind, it springs to action the whole purpose of this whole series that I'm piloting of Mazakele. Mazakele being a Zulu word for build it yourself or do it yourself. So let's zoom into that on specificity. What has the Makana Residents Association specifically done? I mean, we spoke offhand about the oversight role that you guys have stepped up on, which begs the question, where are the politicians? But also secondly, talk to me about physically. You know, have you been patching potholes? Are there other organizations you've been working with who are doing these kinds of things? Talk to me.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about oversight. We recently followed a journey which started in 2018, and I've just about 2 weeks ago laid charges at the police station, which was regarding theft by unknown persons at the municipality of 50 48 kg gas cylinders that we have never been able to identify as being anywhere in Grahamstown.
Sure.
So it was a journey to get the paperwork together because we don't have access as residents to stores. So we can't go in and check our theories. So we have to work through the politicians. And it took a very long time to get the questions through council. I do give some of the politicians credit for doing that, for sticking with it. And we did eventually get to the point that everybody agreed there was no gas cylinders. So those kind of things I feel politicians should be doing more of. Because there are very definitely things that if you look you can find, and you can definitely either lay charges or hold people accountable for things that are not happening.
That's right.
So I believe the political system in this town has failed to provide proper oversight, and hence the mess you see we're in.
And again, that's the oversight role you were talking about. Talk to me about now some of the physical stuff you've been doing. And I know there's organizations you work with who've been even patching potholes.
Yes, from a Makana Residents Association point of view, we don't particularly get involved in patching potholes, but Makana Revive have raised a lot of money and spent a lot of time fixing potholes all across town, and doing some security issues, paying for cameras, and other issues like that. There are other smaller groups of residents and businesses. High Tech, I know, have filled potholes. Carrara have filled potholes, so some of the bigger businesses have filled potholes. Makana Bricks filled potholes, or provided materials to fill potholes, filled the gap when municipalities say they don't have materials to fill potholes. So, and as I say, small groups of residents in many neighbourhoods have actually got fed up and said, okay, I'm just going to do this myself.
Maybe as a final question, talk to me about what the university has been doing. I mean, this is a university town. Sorry to put you under the spot there, but and be absolutely frank. Have they been at the forefront of saying, hey guys, this is how we can do this? I mean, this is their economy, so to speak. It's a university town to a large extent.
I think the university could have done a lot more in terms of stepping up with its loud voice. It's occasionally bailed the municipality out in historical times and actually paid rates ahead of time to pay wages. That's quite a long time ago, but it did happen. They have, on the other hand, marched with us over water, also quite a long time ago. And I think the sense is they are beginning to realise that if we don't get this sorted out together, then they are beginning to get a little more active. They have recently invested in the Circle of Unity. They've got a paid position who's managing the Circle of Unity, which is another oversight role, collaborative role in the town. So they are putting some resources in there. I think they're also trying to make themselves a little self-sufficient, which also might be not so good for the town. I think they seem to be working towards being water self-sufficient and potentially power self-sufficient. And I think the general feeling amongst the community is that might not be the best solution for the town. Although it probably would be good for the university, and we know the university is good for the town.
Absolutely. Sally, thank you so much for your time. Super appreciate that. And just before I even close this little segment here, while Sally is here, the greatest irony, the whole day as we were traveling around the town, we were looking for municipal workers to actually put on camera. And how's this for irony? The one time we're not looking for them and we're just doing a small interview segment, a few of them walked by, specifically the Extended Public Works Program employees. But again, it begs the question, money is being spent on that, but why are we not seeing outcomes in the town? Those are the sort of questions that ordinary residents like Sally and many others, whether they're in associations or not, are asking hard questions about. Why are we not seeing outcomes, even though money is being spent? Thank you, Sally. Super appreciate that. And we're going to get the conversation going with a few other participants and residents of this town. Baba, thank you so much for your time. We are traveling around Grahamstown. We're trying to show our viewers the state of the town, unfortunately, how it's gone down, things are not working. They saw visuals of the amount of rubbish on the streets, for example, the water that apparently is not here, but it's running in the streets. So there's clearly a problem here in Grahamstown. But before I get to that, who am I talking to?
You're talking with Given Fact.
Given Fact?
Yes, Given.
Nice to meet you, Baba. Given, I know you run a small organization here in, what area is this?
Extension 10, Joza.
Extension 10. Part of this show is to talk to ordinary people who are doing something for themselves. This show, a series that I'm doing now, is called Mazakele. Because we want to showcase those people who are doing things for themselves. They're not waiting for government. They're just saying, you know what, there's a problem in my area, let me do something. Talk to me about the initiative, Yako. What are you busy with?
I'm busy with working with the community. I just sometimes showing them the things we can do so long we're waiting for the government. Their jobs are scarce. But at the moment, I'm creating small jobs, like collecting the bottles and sell it to the recycling. Yeah.
And I know you mentioned Une soup kitchen that you're doing, and also as we're driving in, we saw that the one area now that it looks very good, that has been cleared out. They said you are involved in that. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, usually I'm working with the youth. When sometimes we're not doing things like now, I talk them, guys, must go there to clean our area, this one. So there's no one was not waiting for someone else to clean for us. We're staying here, so that we can try to make the place beautiful. Yeah.
And the soup kitchen, how many people are you feeding at the moment?
At the moment, the soup kitchen, we're running. We've got, call it the location gunning. Location, other people are staying here in Extension 10, other people staying there at Extension 9. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people.
Maybe as a final question, I want to get to know you a little bit.
Yes.
Talk to me about Wena. Are you a family man? Do you have children? And what made you feel like I've got to do something in my own neighborhood?
I can say I'm a goal-getter. Yeah. Even myself, I don't want to wait for somebody else just leading me. I'm leading my own self. Myself, I told them I've got wife, I've got children. Each and every day, when we're going to sleep, we're dreaming. What about we can do it tomorrow to make it different? We don't do so much, but we try to make it different each and every time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Baba, I must thank you for Iskatsako. And again, it's these little stories that I'm traveling around the country trying to bring out so that people in other communities can also see that, we don't have to wait. We can just do things on our own. Are you a registered NGO? Do you have an NGO maybe that people can support? Not yet?
No, not at the moment. Even now we're trying, suppose other people saying they must try to register it. But now we're running with own self, on our pocket and just helping other small other small people, they've got money. Yeah.
No, in that case, we'll stay in touch with you. And hopefully once you get everything up and running and ready, we'll be asking about you to support the initiative yakho and support umsebenzi wakho.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Well,
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks
For your time.
Okay.
And yeah, thank you. We're going to keep it going. Again, this is the whole point of why we're doing this. We're chatting to ordinary people. We're not chatting to politicians. We're not chatting to government officials. Ordinary people who, in the face of adversity, are choosing to Mazakele. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure the viewers are wondering now, we've shown them visuals really of the entire town and the shocking state of things from different vested, let me call it interest groups. And we spoke to a guy who's running a soup kitchen out in, I think he said Extension 10 or Extension 6. Chap who's doing fantastic work. Again, much like the theme of this particular series that I'm shooting of Mazakele, the notion of doing it yourself or building it yourself, he's an example of that. There is a spirit of that in this town, and chatting to you perhaps will be even more instructive because you're a very active citizen here in Grahamstown, a business owner. Who is Ron? Tell me a bit about yourself.
Thanks, Sinclair. The activism part started some years back when, together with some other local residents, we established a trust, Makana Revive Trust, which was essentially established to collect funds and do the maintenance and basic upkeep of the town that the municipality was failing at. And the basis for Makana Revive Trust was actually to be disbanded as soon as possible. In other words, its ultimate success, which would be to have a functioning municipality as opposed to a failed one, would be the reason for its demise. Sadly, we have had to escalate our work, collections and services to the town, and are now involved in providing some security, road repairs, maintenance, provision of bulbs for street lights, and as funds permit, the repair of sewage and other reticulation services.
Sorry to jump in there, because you're painting a picture of really what should be the basic functions of any municipality around the country. And we know from various reports, and I'll probably flag some links on the show to that effect. We know that the state of municipalities in the country is absolutely dismal, and the Makana municipality, or Grahamstown really, is no different. Talk to me, Graham, about what even prompted this in the beginning. How bad how bad did things get that eventually saw you say, you know what, as a local business guy who's dependent on basics like electricity, water, reliable sewage collection, sewage works, and trash collection, how bad did it get, prompting you guys to even launch this organization?
A lot of the municipal functions were just not being carried out, either through a lack of capacity or a lack of aptitude, and generally both. Successive administrations did not assist in the matter. At one stage we had a change of mayors, I think 3 or 4 mayors within a 5-year period. The municipality was even placed under partial administration at one stage. Also, for a few months we had some improvements, but not enough and not consistent enough to have medium to long-term improvements. So it got to a point where the infrastructure was deteriorating to such an extent that we often did not have water. We were concerned about the health of our staff living in areas where the sewage was overflowing, where there was a lack of water, where, for instance, as a result of lack of street lights, crime was rampant. And these were just some of the issues that we were looking at. And what peeved us the most was that this is one of the wealthier municipalities. It actually has sufficient financial resources, not to provide a perfect service delivery record, but certainly to provide adequate service delivery. And still does, by the way.
And that's the tragic part of it all. It almost reads like a Shakespearean tragedy in a sense, where all the characters are there, all the ingredients are there, each in their own charismatic way. You know, we drove past some of the more sort of informal parts of Grahamstown and some areas where you can see there's been recent housing development, for example. It looks great aesthetically, but permeating all of that are mounds of trash. Which almost tells the story of there being scant, if not no, refuse collection. You know, we saw street lights that have been broken. You alluded to that, where, you know, it begs the question, what does this area look like? It's full of life, it's colourful now, but what does it look like when it's the evening? You know, do people still hang around? And, you know, are there issues of safety, for example? It's the tragedy of small town South Africa. Ron, I'm going to lead us into sort of the final two questions, really, because this series is about people who have then taken the initiative, not waiting for the state, not waiting for politicians, whoever your politicians are. This show doesn't really pick and choose politicians. We don't care about the politicians, but ordinary people doing stuff for themselves. What does this organization do? You mentioned it collects revenue. Obviously, that's to do stuff. What have you been busy with? What have you been working on?
Makana Revive's services are entirely restricted to the amount of funds that it collects.
Makes sense.
We had a unfortunate situation last year with the COVID pandemic, where essentially most of our funds were directed toward basic survival and assisting the community and townsfolk on survival requirements. And we were part of an initiative to produce masks locally and hand sanitizer together with other parties as well. Unless we are able to sustain a decent level of contributions, and at the moment we take in contributions probably equivalent to less than 0.1% of the annual municipal budget.
Sure.
And yet with those contributions, at many stages we were able to do more than the municipality in terms of, for instance, road repairs. But on a personal level, looking at the past and current situation, I think where our civil society organizations like Makana Revive and myself personally, we've adopted the position that government is not the solution. Government is the problem. And the constitutional order, as wonderful, romantic, well thought out as it is, simply does not work.
That's right.
In the real world. And this is the real world where we have basic, tragic human needs, requirements that are just not being met. And it's wonderful to see the development, which might be a provincial provincial competency, but what about the services, the reticulation, the sewage, the electricity, the water supply to these new developments? So understanding that government, and by extension, the municipal functions under which it operates, are inoperative, lack capacity, lack expertise, because over the last 25 years there has been I would say, purposeful reduction of the institutional memory in this municipality. We're in a situation where unless the residents, ratepayers, citizens get involved, even if it means double paying for rates and taxes, which would go into a well-managed, governed account, that is what we require. We're not suggesting that people break the law, but we would like to suggest that since basically every resident in this town has an alternative to government, government's function for disadvantaged people is to pay for a funeral. Those people have funeral policies because they can't rely on that efficiency. We have people who pay, in addition to their normal taxes, school fees, fees for armed response, medical aid, private education. Our police force is largely supplemented and extended by private security companies. So if we're in a situation where we are double and sometimes triple paying for basic services that the state should provide, whether on a national, provincial, or local level, if we're in that situation already, the question I have to all communities is band together, pay in extra on your rates and taxes account, double it if necessary, I assure you it will be an investment well made. Because a homeowner owning a home in a town where access to a show day to sell that property is restricted because of potholes cannot get the kind of value and price for most people from their biggest investment that they would if a town was well managed and operated.
Absolutely. Maybe as a final question I mentioned, it's that call to action which I'm really interested in. And it's one which, again, as people are watching the show, someone out there that's watching is living in a small dorpie somewhere that's going through exactly the same thing that Grahamstown is going through, Makana is going through. They're probably thinking, okay, I hear this, and I hear that, with you having a Makana revival or revive, excuse me, I keep saying revival as if this is some happy clappy Christian thing at the moment. But I hear you when you mention that there is a Makana revive, and some person watching is probably thinking, we can replicate that. We can do something like that ourselves. And they hear you sort of mention the difficulty of maybe trying to encourage residents to say, I know it's unfair, I know it's very difficult, but pay something a little extra for us to be able to band together and actually do things on our own. That's the one ambit of it. The other ambit of it, of course, is, this will sound very Old Testament-y if you're a Christian, but very Torah-like for my purposes. It'll sound very sort of retribution-y in a sense. Let me sort of flesh that out. Someone might be thinking, what happens to the politicians? Because they're still receiving their money to an extent, but what do we do to them? And on this show, we're going to have a chat with a chap named Pete Leroux, who's the head of Mazakele. They're a business advocacy organization out in Pretoria. They're currently before the courts, arguing this very issue of once a municipality is declared unfit for whatever reasons, or in your case it is dissolved completely, that little limbo period that has seen, for example, this municipality delay things a bit, won't happen in others, because they'll set out mechanisms in law that empower residents like you, for example, to then say, if the funds are there, let's channel them into this means and start delivering things in any event whilst we wait for a new government to be elected. I'm going to ask you to comment on that briefly, if that's a mechanism that could have helped you guys. But more pertinently, talk to me about what residents should be doing, either here in Grahamstown, a call to action to them, and in other parts of the world, that direct plea from you of what should be done if we're to turn this around.
My opinion differs from those in the legal circles.
Right.
The applications to High Court for dissolution of municipalities under Section 139, whether it's a final dissolution, which is what actually has been granted in our case and sadly has been appealed by the ruling party, these are academic victories. Victories, nevertheless, but academic victories. Because with that ultimate sanction, what then happens is your municipality is dissolved, in other words, the council, an administrator, which is appointed by the province. And sadly, not only the province, but national government and local government has a very poor track record of appointing the correct people. They will appoint those that wield particular influence or are on the making end of the corruption which we've heard about so sadly at the Zonda Commission. So after the appointment of the administrator, then within 3 months, in theory, a new council has to be elected and there are new elections. Unfortunately, with the track record of the ruling party and the voter disconnect between their lives and their livelihoods and the condition of their town being directly related to the people they vote for and the parties they vote for, there's a disconnect there. And that still occurs in Makana. So if we are ultimately successful, the bottom line is we may well get the same council in place that we fought so hard to dissolve. So Mazakhele's application is very important. In practice, citizens have very little power, except to take matters into their own hands on the fringes of lawfulness and legality. The solution to this is twofold. Number one, obviously to raise funds and to have resources to do the necessary repairs, upkeep, upgrades, and take over as many of the functions as is possible, and take them over from the regional political bodies, from the trade unions, and sadly a lot of the trade unions and governing parties are one and the same thing in this matter. Take those things over, but what the man in the street and the woman in the street can do, as long as they are 18 years and over, is to have a direct connection between their vote and the service delivery and life and livelihood that they experience.
That's right.
Your vote is important. We have examples in this country of municipalities that are exceptionally well run. And it's not a party political thing. It is just having the basic competent people with the right aptitude in place to do a job that's been done for aeons across the world. This is nothing new. Use your vote judiciously, properly. Vote for the good life.
Ron, what would you like to see from fellow Grahamstown residents? Should they be getting behind this initiative?
They should be getting behind any civil society initiative which does things. We have got so many structures in place in this municipality which are effective talk shops. They're incredibly effective talk shops. But on the doing part, the delivery part, they are just not landing it. So ultimately, I would like to see Grahamstown property owners, Makana property owners, residents banding together, contributing as much as they can afford into well-governed, non-government organisation funds and trusts which are tasked with improving the town.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, come November or whenever the local elections may be held, because we're not entirely sure, use your vote judiciously, correctly, rationally. Bear in mind that even if the ultimate, perfect political order was voted into place in Makana, it would still take a few years of citizens' involvement to reverse the rot and to get onto a level playing field. So our work actually has to continue even if we have the perfect political dispensation, which we can do.
Absolutely. Ron, thank you very much. Super appreciate your time. Again, all the best for Makana Revive. I think it is an organization that should be replicated in small towns across the country where we've seen this sort of collapse. So there you have it. You saw for yourself what I was talking about when I began the show, how a town like Grahamstown, and why it was important for me to begin the story here in Grahamstown. This is a town that's gone through the absolute worst. They've been to hell and back. A town of residents, ordinary people, black, white, Indian, colored, it's irrelevant. It's residents who got together and said, enough. Enough with the ineptitude, enough with the incompetence, enough with the corruption by the political elites. And they took steps. They went to court to fight for what is their basic rights, their freedoms, their liberties, if you will. The freedom to have services that they've paid for in a town like this one. There's obviously been problems. It hasn't been rosy, it hasn't been easy. But here's what really mattered insofar as the purpose of the show. The purpose, of course, being launching, piloting, if you will, the Mazakele campaign. Reminder, a Zulu word for build it yourself. Residents here took the initiative upon themselves. Whether it is the Makana Revive, we interviewed Ron on that initiative that sees them taking the initiative, collecting funds voluntarily from their from their community, and doing things like fixing potholes and the like, to the residents' associations who have upped their oversight role in order to place pressure on the municipality and to rally residents around them, or individuals in communities across this town who've started initiatives like cleaning and fixing up their area, soup kitchens to support each other, youth empowerment. These are residents who have decided, you know what, I am not going to wait for politicians. I will do things for myself. That is the Mazakhele spirit. And I put it to you, and this is what I want to show in the show, the series, if you will, that there are thousands of South Africans across the country who are doing the same thing, but their story is not being told. And they're not being able, or because of that, they're unable to inspire other South Africans, even in bigger cities, to do exactly this. Mazakele, to do things or to build things for themselves. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, a first of hopefully a series, if with your support, of course. And as I've said, this is something ahead of the local government elections that I want to put together as a series so that you see the power is in your hands, not the politicians. So with that being said, as residents are making their way back home, as you can see, thank you so much for watching. I super appreciate it. I really reiterate this following point. To make this series happen, if you want to see the Mazakhele series, please, it literally is dependent on your support, from as little as contributing $2 a month towards the show. All of that information as to how you can do that is in the descriptor of the video. It will help me fund getting around the country, finding these individuals and telling these stories town by town by town, and hopefully showing South Africans that we can build things and do things for ourselves. With that being said, thank you very much for watching this Grahamstown iteration of the Mazakhele pilot. As I leave you with images, I'm going to ask my cameraman to pan out to end the shot with Grahamstown. Thank you for watching, and remember, as always, never trust a commie.